This is an ABC podcast.
Welcome back to another edition of the ABC Grandstand Football Podcast. Delighted to bring it to you on another Mondays. You get through another week thinking about football, hanging out for the weekend, looking forward to the midweek games to get you through it. Hopefully this can act as part of your therapy, if you like, to break up the week for you. Robbie Cornthwaite, delighted to have you alongside me for it.
Thank you very much, Garby. Mate, we say kick off your Monday with the podcast. This week we're taking it to a new extreme, 7:45 a.m. record time for me here in Adelaide. So we're doing our very best to get it out to the fans as early as possible, let me tell you that.
Exactly right. You might need therapy afterwards for the early wake up, but I think you'll be okay. It shows the commitment, my good friend. And hey, never mind just the early wake up and the early edition this week, an extra episode as well. So a bonus on the Grandstand Football Podcast. If you haven't caught up with it, Callum Elder had a chat with him in the UK. It was meant to be for the episode this week, but he spoke so well and in so much detail, we thought let's make it an extra bonus episode, which is there for you to listen to. A wonderful story of an Aussie who's emerged this season, won the title with Hull, League One team of the season, and soon to be a Socceroo. So it's a story that hasn't been told much. Catch up on the podcast if you can and have a listen to Callum Elder's tale, because he'll be wearing green and gold in June, injury permitting, and you'd want to know a bit about him before that time comes. But before we get into the long and the short of it, Robbie, and the A-League wrap, and our special guest this week, who is Dennis Jondro, and he is a wonderful chat. Speaking about youngsters,
excellent,
can speak eloquently. Dennis Jondro is right up there, isn't he? That was a great chat we had before we got going with this one.
He certainly was, and he was sitting in his car doing the interview just before training. Something we've seen on a number of occasions on this podcast, but it's what he mentions about what else that goes on in that car. Don't get the wrong idea. That I was really fascinated with, and obviously he gave a great insight into that, and hopefully that helps him going forward in his future.
Exactly. He's a really good interview, so stay tuned for Denny Jondro, one of our Olympians, hopefully come Tokyo. If he can make the squad, he's well and truly in the mix, that is for sure. But from a youngster emerging to a genuine superstar of Australian sport, never mind just football, before we get into the A-League and everything else, let's pay tribute to this woman.
Sam, not only are you champions of the WSL, but you're also the Barclays Golden Boot winner for the season as well. How does that feel?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing is that we won the title, but coming over from America, not going to lie, this feels pretty good.
Absolutely. You're a global hat-trick winner of the Golden Boot now. North America, Australia, and now here in England as well. It's pretty special.
Yeah, it is special. I think it was always a dream of mine to come play in Europe and to continue to score and be a part of this amazing team. This is my job to help us win titles, so I'm pumped.
How much credit do you have to give to Fran Kirby as well?
I mean, I'll tell anyone who will listen to me how good that girl is. She's unbelievable. She deserves Player of the Year, in my opinion. She's absolutely incredible. But the whole team, we don't do what we do up front without everyone kind of holding their own. So it's a team effort, but yeah, she's a special player.
You might have lost count. It's actually 52 goals between you in all competitions this season. It's quite incredible. How do you do it?
I don't know. Just kick the ball in the back of the net. I think that's... I don't know. We've got more to come. We've got 2 more games and we're still going for more.
You make it sound so simple. Enjoy. Congratulations.
Cheers. Thank you.
So that's Samantha Kerr, Robbie. I think you've heard about her once or twice, perhaps. 21 goals in 22 games this season for Chelsea. Her 6th Golden Boot in 5 years across 3 continents. Australia, the USA, and now in Europe, of course. It's a wonderful story, and she is aiming for the quadruple as well. So they've won the league now, Chelsea. They did that overnight. They've won the League Cup. They're still in the FA Cup, and they're in the final of the Champions League. They could win all 4 with Sam Kerr spearheading the attack, the first player in the English league to score more than 20 goals in a season. It is just awesome what she is doing for Australian sport.
Oh, she just continues on. I mean, over the years, she's just been a wonderful player, and she continues to prove that she's one of the best, if not the best, strikers in the world. I think previously we knew how good she was in Australia. They knew how good she was in America, but just going over there and cracking it in Europe in the last couple of seasons has obviously made her star rise, in my opinion. And as you say, she's still got the Champions League and the FA Cup potentially to claim for all 4 trophies. And you sort of think back to when she first went to Chelsea, and she sort of struggled at the beginning. And, some people, maybe not questioning, but thought, well, I thought she'd be up and running a little bit sooner, but now she's certainly playing some of the best football of her career. And I saw the celebration. She was front and center in all the trophy presentations. The champagne was flowing. I'm sure they would have limited that champagne. It might have been non-alcoholic champagne for all I know, but certainly a couple of big games to look forward to. And then an Olympic Games as well. So as a footballer, I mean, she's at the peak of her powers. And with the games that are coming thick and fast, the most important football games on the calendar for any footballer in the world, she'd just be absolutely loving life at the moment.
I get the feeling Sammy Kerr knows how to enjoy herself. She's a good Perth girl, and she knows how to have a good time, and so she should with all that she achieves. And it obviously makes no difference to the way in which she performs. And what I'm looking forward to now at the end of this season is whether she gets that big recognition in Europe and wins a big Player of the Year trophy, because they always come around, and fans who don't follow women's football intricately are always incredulous. How has Sam Kerr not won? We're told she's the best player in the world. We see what she's done. And then some other, intelligent scribes say, yeah, but there's a lot of players in Europe that you don't know about who are doing it at a slightly higher level. She has to go there before she wins one of these big Player of the Year awards. Now's her time. Now she can hopefully do it, especially considering Chelsea's in the Champions League final. Hopefully this is Sam Kerr's Ballon d'Or year, and what a story that would be.
I have to agree with you. I think the danger is one of her teammates in Kirby doing the same things, winning the same trophies, going along the same path. She scores plenty of goals herself, and she's influential for Chelsea too. So, I mean, if Kerr doesn't win it, let's hope a close friend and teammate can do it.
Let's just touch on some of the other Aussies abroad, because that was going to be my short of it this week. I've got another one, but just some wonderful tales at the moment of our Aussies overseas who are doing so well. So Jackson Irvine and Martin Boyle have made the Scottish Cup final with Hibernian, both of them with assists in the semi-final. They'll play St Johnstone in the final. Big chance for them to win a big trophy in Scotland. Harry Souttar's being linked to the Premier League and Burnley after a really good season with Stoke. I mean, it's incredible what he's been doing as an Aussie to emerge, if you like. We've touched on Callum Elder. Aiden Rustich scored his first goal in the Bundesliga overnight. A wonderful finish as well. Get on Twitter if you haven't seen it yet. He's on the ground sliding and manages to poke it into the top corner from a fair way out, almost 18 yards out. So a wonderful goal for Aiden Rustich. Matty Ryan's done well for Arsenal recently. Talk he'll be signed by them and may push Bernd Leno, who hasn't had a great second half of the season. So that's an interesting story to emerge for Matty Ryan. Brad Smith scoring goals for the Seattle Sounders in America. He's doing good things. Denny Juric has got 11 in Croatia for the season in the Croatian top flight. There's a number of young Aussies that are emerging and established players that are doing well too.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that season over in Scotland for Irvine, since he made that move, and they finished really high up in the table, third, I think it was, and now to be in a final as well, and a game that they really, they're probably favourites going into. I think they've got a fantastic opportunity. Another Aussie potentially winning silverware. Matt Ryan was a big talking point a few months ago on this show, and whether he was going to play at Arsenal. He has done well to get some games. Obviously, they're out of the Europa Cup now, which means Leno will probably play a little bit more in the league. But, word is Leno, without European football, might want to move on, which could open a good opportunity for Matty Ryan to stay. I think he'd be a good option for Arsenal. It's just whether or not he will be the number one. That's still to be determined. But, yeah, all those names you mentioned, the goal in the Bundesliga from Aiden was a wonderful strike, fantastic finish, and Harry Souttar, Premier League. If it isn't this year, he's at a young age still, then you would have to think at some point in the future, if he continues along this path, he'd be a really good shout, because only 12 months ago, he was going on loan to Fleetwood Town and dropping down divisions. Now he's been a key member of Stoke. They had a really good start to the season. Looked like they may be pushing for playoffs. They dropped off a little bit. But, yeah, great to see him attracting some big interest as well. So, I'll get straight into the long of it, Garvey. Yep. It's a pretty simple one this week, and it's just on the Tony Popovic situation at Melbourne Victory. Obviously, Steve Keane came out during the week and said Popper has been getting in touch with some of the players and letting them know that they're not required for next season without calling me and letting me know. I don't have a big problem with it, if I'm honest. I mean, Melbourne Victory's season's done and dusted. I can understand Keane's wanting to keep the players motivated and finish the season off strongly. It's almost a strange situation where this part of the season for Melbourne Victory or this year, it's almost dead, because Keane said, I haven't been told who to play. I haven't been told what style to play. Now he's telling my players they can go. are Melbourne Victory holding themselves back a little bit? Should Popper be there already?
I can understand why Popper wouldn't want to, because he'd want the season to be completed and you can come in with a clean slate and tell those players, look, unfortunately, you're not part of it, and start properly. I mean, from his point of view, why would you want to come in now when there's nothing to be gained? That makes sense. But I'm not sure that it's right for him to call players and tell them they're not part of their future, not part of the future there at the club while Steve Keen's still there. I mean, surely he should just pick up the phone and say, listen, Steve, I'm making these calls and I'm letting you know out of respect and because you want to try and do well this season on a personal level, which is understandable, and for the club, that this player won't be getting new contracts. And so you have to manage that. Surely that's the right way to go about it.
Yeah, I can see your point of view. I mean, ultimately, you should probably have respect for your fellow professional, but maybe Popper doesn't have much respect for Steve Keen. I don't know, because if it was a manager that you had a huge amount of respect and admiration for, I'm sure you would go out of your way to call them. Maybe he just thinks his CV doesn't stack up and he's a stopgap measure. And I think from a player's point of view, you're probably better off knowing now, and giving you that option to start to look for another club. And I mean, I can understand why Steve Keen's upset, but at the end of the day, Popper doesn't owe him anything, I suppose.
No, he doesn't. And look, in the big scheme of things, it's not going to matter. Popper wants to get the squad ready for next season. And to him, calling Steve Keen is probably an unnecessary thing to do in terms of where he wants the team to be. It's not, for him, it's not going to make a difference in terms of their quest for success. But I think in terms of a respect thing, it probably something that should have been done, in fairness. But hey, we'll wait and see what happens with that squad moving forward. That'll be exciting for Victory fans, because on field, there isn't too much to get excited about. On the short of it this week, so the move of Steven Agarkovic to the Wanderers from Newcastle has always been on the cards. And the transfer window is open. So there's nothing wrong with that. People can look at it and say, why are clubs signing players before the finals? That's not right. But it's a FIFA transfer window. So they're just operating within those guidelines. But it's not a great look perception-wise, unfortunately, when, and this is the issue, the Newcastle Jets are owned by the other club owners. And then one of those club owners, who happens to be, the Wanderers, is able to bring a player across from the Newcastle Jets. Now, I'm not saying that anything untoward has happened. For all we know, Jordan O'Doherty's gone to the Wanderers and said, look, Steven Agarkovic is coming here next season anyway. I'm not playing much football. Let me go there now if this is going to happen, right? Let me go now. I can play 4 to 6 weeks of football. I can get acclimatized in Newcastle. It can get me moving forward quickly, and you can bring in Steven Agarkovic now. So maybe that happened. I doubt it. But perception-wise, that's the point. It's not a great look. And I don't think this can continue for that much longer. Maybe they're waiting for the broadcast deal to come in before they can really push for an ownership change at the Jets. But the situation where the club owners are running another football club, it just opens itself up to this sort of stuff in the future. And it's not a great look perception-wise.
No, it's not. I mean, it's a unique situation, as you say, where the owners of the other clubs are running Newcastle. And I can imagine if Newcastle were going a little bit better this season, if they were sort of top 6 or pushing for that top 6, this move wouldn't have happened. I know the Wanderers came out in protest a few weeks ago to say, Lederer and John Tatsimas have been there too long. It's time for them to go. I don't think they can have any complaints with the way that their club's gone about it this season in terms of attracting players, attracting coaches. They've gone out of their way, put noses out of joints of opposition fans, of opposition clubs, of the media, to go and get every single player and manager that they want. They've done everything possible, in my opinion, to turn this club around and to get into the top 6. So I think Wanderers fans maybe need to have a little bit of a look at that. If the team's not doing well on field, then maybe that's a coaching, something for the coach to sort out. But I think from a backroom staff, they've gone well and truly. We spoke about that arrogance and that big club mentality. I think they've really gone and done it. And they don't care, I suppose, if people are upset. What they've done is within the rules. And whatever the perception is, it doesn't matter. They haven't broken any rules, and they've gone and attracted and gone and got the best players they think they can to make the top 6.
Yeah, it's more of I think, an issue for the owners to say, all right, this is something we need to be wary of. And the integrity of the competition does get brought into question by some. So hopefully it doesn't continue for that much longer. And you can understand no one coming in for the Jets while there's no broadcast deal signed, but we expect that to happen imminently. And then you can go to market and say, this is what you've got guaranteed coming in for the next 3 to 5 years or whatever financially by this football club, big part of the region. And let me just say, while I've given them a little bit of a kick for what's happened in that sense, the club owners deserve enormous credit for supporting the Newcastle Jets, because they are bankrolling this club. They are keeping it afloat. They are allowing it to thrive in certain ways and setting it up for next season. And there are many people who wouldn't do that. So credit them for ensuring the safety of an important football region, not just club in Australia. And that's crucial for the future of the A-League. So they deserve a big tick for that. But let's hope they can sort out the other situation in the future. While we're on the subject of the Wanderers, let's stick with them. Big result on Saturday night, 5-0 thumping of Western United. Western United were awful. I mean, Mark Rudan said, we were lethargic, we were tired. He didn't want to blame his players. He blamed the schedule. They played in the wet in Brisbane a few days later. Now they're flying to Perth to play the Glory midweek. So he's not going to be any happier, Mark Rudan. But that's the biggest loss in their history. Well played to the Wanderers, though. They were ruthless.
Well, they certainly were. I mean, just quickly on Western United, first of all, we know that Mark Rudan called this a Kentucky tour, this away trip, Adelaide, Brisbane, Western Sydney, and now to Perth. I think the schedule is one thing and the fatigue on the players, but I think mentally that just the two results leading into that game would have been such a blow for them. In Adelaide, they scored, they had it disallowed, they played with 10 men, they deserved so much more and they didn't get it. Then they go up to Brisbane on that heavy pitch, very difficult to play football. They lose in the 95th minute, another blow mentally. And then they go down to Western Sydney, they make a few changes and yeah, from the get-go, they just weren't at the races. Probably their poorest performance of the season. Full credit to the Wanderers, though. Following up from the derby, I thought in the derby that first half was probably one of their best first halves of the season. They've gone and bettered that against Western United on the front foot. I mentioned Kamau and just how they, the Wanderers had 22 shots on goal, I think it was, on the season. They only had 38% possession. I think early on in the season, it was this slow build-up and let's work our way through the lines. They tended to have a lot of possession without a lot of end result. Now, all of a sudden, they're playing a little bit more like an Adelaide United, where it's in transition. When they win the ball back, they spring forward as quickly as possible. They got pace up front. Kamau, as I mentioned, another day, Mitch Duke could have had a number of different goals, and I thought that was probably the best game from James Troisi in a Wanderers shirt.
Well, it was. I mean, a goal and 3 assists, and Carl Robinson said exactly that. That's the best game James has played for us. So he's a player that Wanderers fans and football fans have given a bit of a clip to this season, saying he hasn't produced enough, and he was there for the taking for Western Sydney, but he stepped up and was the orchestrator of the victory. So he deserves credit for that, and they've clicked now. They've got a little bit of rhythm and momentum about them. Still tough for them to make the finals because the Brisbane Roar have got games in hand, and they're behind them, and other teams have games in hand as well. But they've got the momentum now, and that's the crucial thing. They'll feel good about going on a run. So he's turned it around when he was under the most pressure possible, Carl Robinson, and maybe bringing a Scotty McDonald into a squad, and now a Ugarkovic, even though they're packed for numbers, mentality-wise, maybe just gave everyone a bit of a kick up the backside, and it's worked on the park. So well done to them. Let's just pay a little bit of a tribute, though, to the team that will win the Premier's Plate, because they recorded another crucial 3 points yesterday.
Raish sweeping one out to Galloway. Scott Galloway looking the most likely. It's a brilliant run from the right back. So many bodies in the road. He did it all himself. Scott Galloway with a sumptuous volley.
So amid this logjam, Robbie, of 7 teams separated by 5 points in the finals, which is going to be an exhilarating top 6 race, of course, we have Melbourne City, who are now 9 points clear at the top with a game in hand. Talk about utter domination. And they were challenged again yesterday by a Brisbane Roar side who lose nothing bar the 3 points from that one. They were impressive in the manner in which they fought back. But you just can't keep this Melbourne City side down. They are just cruising at the moment, and they're going to win their first A-League trophy. So they've won an FFA Cup, but now they'll win their first league trophy, of course, with the Premier's Plate. And that's a huge achievement for Patrick Casnorbo in his first season as coach, even though he's not on the sideline at the moment with that Achilles problem.
Yeah, massive. I think Des Buckingham said it after the game. The fact that they were 2-0 up, they got pegged back. Last season, that's a game they probably wouldn't have won. Whether they lost or drew is for another day. But that they showed maturity. They showed progression. The fact that they're top of the table, they're going to win their first piece of A-League silverware, as you mentioned. I think that's a real sign of maturity for this side. I thought it was a cracking game. I think City probably could have had a couple more goals. But, had Brisbane gotten all 3 points in that game, it would have all of a sudden made things wide open again. They would have been, 5 points behind with 2 games in hand, or 7 points behind, something like that. So all I can say is Brisbane, they've been on a tremendous run. 2 months, I think they went without a loss, and now they've got the games coming thick and fast. 7 games, I think, in the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. So if they can get back to winning ways straight away, I think they've been good enough, particularly over the last 2 months, as I mentioned, to make the finals. But yeah, Melbourne City romping home. One real positive for Brisbane is the form of Joey Champness over the last 3 weeks. He's come to life. He's provided that extra bit of spark in the front third. Not sure whether just took a bit of time to find his feet. The Olympic Games have bolted for him. I don't think he's anywhere near the squad. But certainly great to see him back scoring and good signs for Brisbane.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, there aren't too many wingers in calculations. I know there's a lot of defenders, a lot of midfielders, out and out true wingers who are making a difference. I reckon he's on the radar a little bit. Mate, what was he doing going to America trying to pursue a rap career? If he wanted fame and fortune, he should have stuck with football. I mean, he's clearly got the goods to have a long career. He's got the X factor. Warren Moon, I spoke to him recently. He said he was the first player he called, Joey Champness, when he got the job at Brisbane, because he knew he could be a difference maker in his squad. And he said Queensland should never have allowed him leave the system, because he always was a player who could produce like he is doing right now. And of course, we saw him burst on the scene with Newcastle, but he's been fantastic. One of the best wingers in the league in the last month or so, if not the best. He's been fantastic. So that's great to see. Connor Metcalf, the Aussie Michael Bullock, doing it again. Just that burst through from midfield and the finish from the tight angle. What a gem he is, hey? So that's great to see. And we're going to speak to another potential Olympian in Dennis Jonro in a minute. Scotty Jamieson involved in a goal again, which was good to see. And what a goal from Scott Galloway. So we haven't heard too much of him this season, but just that little lapse of concentration from Brisbane. They just switch off a little bit and he scores an absolute beauty, Galloway.
Yeah, it was a great run, wasn't it? Very direct. Got himself into the penalty box. And I'd say this a lot, and I hate to keep going back to Adelaide, but wingers that get themselves into the penalty box. I know Galloway's not a winger, but on that occasion, it wasn't looking to turn out. He drove with the ball hard into the penalty box. And once you get in there, it's so hard for the defender to try to make a tackle. Obviously, he had the shot from the tight angle, and when it came back, his finish was unerring. He smashed it in with his left peg, and it was a beautiful connection, a beautiful goal. And I mean, they're the moments where a championship's winning side, Jamie McLaren had a couple of openings, couldn't find the goal scoring touch. And then the sign of a good side is when all of a sudden a player that you might not expect goes and does something and wins you the games. They're the moments that really do win your titles and win your championships, when someone just pops up like that on the odd occasion. Scotty Jamieson's done it twice in a couple of weeks now. I don't think he would have been credited with that goal. Obviously, it was an own goal, but wonderful goal from Galloway. And as we say, Melbourne City, they're just looking so good at the moment.
They certainly are. Another team that's looking a lot better in recent weeks is Macarthur. They sit in 5th, but they're tied on points with the team in 2nd in Sydney FC. That's how tight it is right now. 4 teams level on 32 points. And this man didn't play in their win over the Victory the other night, the 2-1 victory, but he has been dynamic for them all season long. Great to have him on the Grandstand Football Podcast. He is Denny Jonro. Yeah, he's one of the young guns of the A-League in a season, of course, where young stars have emerged, and a key player for Macarthur who are bidding to make the finals in their first season. He is Denny Jonro. He's been good enough to join us on the Grandstand Football Podcast. Dennis, hello to you, mate.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thanks for jumping on board. Let's just take stock generally, I guess. How much are you enjoying this season? I mean, you've been in the A-League system for a while, but your first real campaign, you're at a new club, you're in the mix for the finals, you've got the Olympics coming up. There's so much to take in. How much are you just enjoying it all?
Yeah, it's been awesome, to be honest. I've been the past few seasons in search of regular game time and wanting to really feel part of a team regularly, week in, week out. And that's happened for me so far this season. And yeah, for a startup club, we're doing okay. So and in terms of all the young guns and everything playing this season, it's been such a exciting season for, I think, all the fans to watch as well.
Denny, I just want to talk a little bit about your background first up. It was news to me, actually, that you're born in France. I only learned that recently. Can you talk a little bit about that? Are both your parents from France? When did you come over? And I mean, did you support France growing up as a kid?
So I was born in France. Both my parents are French as well. Moved to Australia in 2001. So moved to Adelaide first, and then moved to Melbourne 6 months later. And yeah, they love it here in Australia. They've made it their home. And yeah, for me, I think I remember the 2006 World Cup. We watched the final at the French embassy with my dad at like 4 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, I guess I always sort of grew up with the French national teams and all that because of my dad. But yeah, obviously then with the World Cup when it was Australia against France in 2018, I was supporting, Australia with all my friends and everything. So yeah, that's a story.
Yeah, and that's great to see, of course. And what about your progression as someone with French heritage? Is there a French player you look at or a French style that you try to bring into your game at all? Is there a player that you've looked up to as you've come through and tried to base your dynamic midfield game on?
Yeah, I've always loved, I always watch YouTube videos of Zidane and Dad used to show me videos of Platini and all these old French players. But I think, for me, I've just always watched Barcelona play. I love the way that they played under Pep Guardiola, and you got Manchester City now with Pep as well. So yeah, I think that sort of, passing, move, midfielder, kind of lots of energy. Yeah, those guys like Gundogan, Silva, I think, yeah.
Fantastic.
Beautiful,
Decent players to
mate.
model yourself on, Rob.
Exactly right. You did. You only played a handful of games at Melbourne City before you made the leap to Europe, not to France, but to Holland. Followed not in the footsteps, but Jean Van Schip took you over there and gave you an opportunity at such a young age, and such limited football in a professional sense before that. How big an eye opener was that for you, and how much has that helped you become the player that you are now?
Yeah, it was massive. Under John, I played a few games as a 17-year-old at Melbourne City, and then Warren Joyce came in and he had a certain type of player and style that he wanted to play, and I didn't fit that, and I knew I wasn't going to play, so I needed to find an opportunity somewhere else, and so yeah, I was contacted by John and had to go over there for a trial. So I went to the Netherlands for a week, and then they were happy to have me over on loan, and the club, Melbourne City, let me do that as well. So originally when I went over to the Netherlands, I wasn't expecting to play any game time. For me, it was just a learning experience to go over there and train at a high level. And then I had a pretty, strong preseason over there. And John basically said to me, look, you're ready to play games. And it was tough, for me coming from playing National Youth League the year before to making the step up to the Eredivisie, I think was, probably a little bit out of my depth because I wasn't used to that kind of intensity. But, I did my best and managed to, play 10 games and learned so much. For me, that was just a massive learning experience to play under John and to play in that league.
Do you think that's maybe where some of the maturity in your game comes from now? Because when I watch you, I don't look at you and think you're 21 years old. There's other guys that for me are exceptional talents, but when I look at them and I watch them play, I can tell they're young. You're almost like a man, like a full-fledged professional in that midfield role. Do you think that's where the maturity came from?
Yeah, I think so, because I had to, as a 18-year-old, to leave your parents. I was living at home and to go live over there by myself. I didn't know anyone. Like the only people I knew was the coach and the assistant coach, Michael Valkanis. And so I didn't know anyone in the community there. And so I had to basically, so there's the basic things outside of football, which you take for granted when you live at home, such as cooking, cleaning, taking care of yourself, taking care of your apartment. So those kind of things, forced me to grow up pretty quickly, I think. And also to be put into an environment where you have to win, because there's promotion, relegation, and the club that I was at is not one of those clubs that are, guaranteed to fit to be in the Eredivisie every season. You got to fight to avoid relegation. So I think to play week in, week out, and to make sure that you win, you get those 3 points, whether you're on the road or you're at home. You're playing in front of 20,000 packed stadiums that want you to stay up and expect you to stay up. So I think to try and build that winning mentality was massive for me.
And it's been obviously huge for you coming back to Australia and impressing for Macarthur this season, of course. Talk us through the impact of Ante Milicic and what he's done for your game, and maybe some specific things that he's done to have an impact on you.
I spoke to Ante obviously in the off season and still when I was at Melbourne City, because I knew I wasn't going to be staying at Melbourne City and I needed to find an opportunity somewhere else. And he was one of the first people to approach me, and obviously I knew him with the under-20 young Socceroos. He really wanted me for that tournament when I was in the Netherlands, and it wasn't able to happen. But Ante said to me, "You're coming to Macarthur as a starter, and we want you to get game time. We want to get you to the Olympics and back into the national team setup and everything." So for me, that was a massive opportunity, and obviously I knew Ivan Jolic as well, and And yeah, they both said that they basically had really high expectations for me, and that I was coming as a starter, and it was my spot to lose basically. So to have that sort of trust from the coaches was massive, and something that I had from John, but didn't really have from any of the coaches at Melbourne City. So for me that was a massive reason why I wanted to come here.
Yeah, wow.
Why do you think you didn't have that from the coaches at Melbourne City?
I'm not sure. I guess there was a lot of turnaround in squad at Melbourne City while I was there. A lot of changes of coaches. You had John, you had Michael Valkanis for a little bit. Then Warren Joyce came in, which was a completely different style. And then we had the Eric Montbart who came in, and I'm not sure, to be honest. Like I was a young player that came through the academy, and there was older players. Obviously, there's high expectations to win at Melbourne City as well, and I guess it just never really happened, and it's just the way it is, I think.
Geez, you'd have thought Eric Montbert, being the Frenchman, would have had a bit of a soft spot for
Exactly.
Denny, but obviously didn't work out that way. But thankfully it has at Macarthur. Hey, we'll talk Olympics in a moment, because that's obviously very exciting, the path to Tokyo. But this finals race is gripping. I mean, you've got 5 points separating second from ninth. It's incredible. And Macarthur's smack bang in the middle, trying to make the finals, of course, in their first season. So how much do you talk about that? I know it's week to week and you just got to focus on the next game. And that's not a cliche. That's how it works. But surely you must look at it and go, how good would it be to make the finals in our first season? What discussions take place in that sense? Yeah,
for sure. I think, when we started off the season, our expectations were to be in the finals. I think with the squad that we have, the experience that we have, it's definitely something that we should be pushing for. But I don't think the A-League's ever been this close, has it, with that finals, those final spots up for grabs. And it's very, very entertaining. And like a lot of the coaches have said, points at the moment are gold. Like whether it's 1 point or 3 points, it makes such a big difference. Like we had 3 points on the weekend, we jumped to second. Then at the end of the round, we're back down to fifth. So it's pretty crazy. But for us, I think the next 4 games are do or die, and it is in our hands at the moment. I think in terms of the points, if we win our games, we make the finals. So we're not reliant on any results at the moment, but it's up to us to win those games.
A lot's been made of the games in hand. This is probably the first season where we've seen such a big difference in the amount of games sides have played. It's always felt like an advantage for the teams with extra games, but now they have to finish the season with 7 or 8 games in the last 4 weeks of the year. On the flip side for Macarthur, you played Thursday, now you play Friday, and then it's another 10-day break. You've missed the game through suspension. Do you think that extra time off helps your team or hinders it in the fact you're not playing as regularly as you'd like?
Well, we've had those short turnarounds as well at the start of the season. Those clubs are having it now towards the end of the season. I know Brisbane has had a lot of time off during the start of the season. They've had 10 days as well. So we've had those short turnarounds. We've had 2 weeks where we've had 3 games in 7 days twice. Now we've got games in hand. So I guess at the end of the season, it's all going to even out. Teams are going to have short turnarounds at some point in the season, and for some teams, I guess that short turnaround is coming towards the end of the season. But I think it does make a difference. You can go either way. I think I guess you saw with West United, their short turnaround was quite tough on them. But I guess it really depends. How you recover, how if you enjoy playing short turnarounds. I know that there's a few boys in the team that love those short turnarounds because you train less, you feel fresher for games. But I don't know. I guess it just really depends on the players and how the club adapts to that travel.
You're going to have short turnarounds at the Olympics if you're lucky enough to go, Denny. Only a squad of 18 and you play every 3 or 4 days. So some of you guys might be used to it if it comes to that. It's going to be obviously heartbreaking for a number of players and the biggest thrill of a number of players' lives when that squad is announced. And we know that there are so many players in contention. We've discussed it so many times. So how's it sitting with you in your mind? I mean, you're someone who is viewed as being a very good chance to go, but it is so competitive. How do you process it now with something that's so big at stake when you're trying to impress week in, week out?
Yeah, I guess it's always at the back of your mind. I've said this a lot in interviews and things like that. Like every day when you turn up to training, your goal is to improve. Your goal is to get your body right because, that motivation, of course, to play week in, week out with the club and do well. But you've also got that motivation of the Olympics at the end of the season. You can only be chosen for that if you're playing well week in, week out. So, it's massive. I think an opportunity to go to the Olympics is, once in a lifetime, as everyone knows, and as all the young players have said. So to be able to go would be amazing. And there's so much competition this season with players in Australia and also overseas, and I think that's good for the squad because at the end of the day, you want to bring your most competitive, your most match fit squad to the Olympics to have the best chance of doing well. So to have so many players playing is very, very good for the national team.
You obviously have maybe a slight advantage in the fact you live in Sydney. That's where the Socceroos boss and Ollie Roos boss lives as well. He's got the opportunity to come and watch you and maybe even come and watch you train. Have you had any communication with him? Have you met with him or have you spoken to him at all?
No, not really. I'm in contact with the the medical staff, the physios, the doctors. They're always checking in once a week. But yeah, in terms of going on, I hope he's come to watch a few of my games live. But yeah, no, I haven't really spoken to him personally.
We mentioned as well, Garby asked you about Ante Milicic. What sort of influence has Mark Milligan had on you? He's a guy that's been to the Olympics, he's been to World Cups. We know he wants to get into coaching after this. Is he a guy that's given you much advice? Yeah,
so much. He lives about 2 minutes away from me, so we drive most days together in the car. And I remember in preseason when he first messaged me saying, "Oh, I'll come pick you up in the morning." To be fair, I was pretty nervous because obviously I 4 World Cups. It's pretty crazy, and the play of that experience and to sit next to him in the car. I'll buy him the coffee in the morning. And to have chats with him, we've spoken about the Olympics so many times about his experience when he went. He also went under Graham Arnold, and to have a player of that caliber around the dressing room for all the young players, it's amazing. But for me as well, to sit next to him in the car, to hear what he has to say about games, to get his opinion on football, and also just to learn off him because he's been in the midfield, he's been at the back, he's played a number of positions and under a number of fantastic coaches in Australia. So it's been fantastic for me.
That's great to hear. Does he let you pick the music or the podcast, Grandstand Football Podcast? Obviously, does he let you have a bit of a selection in that sense?
No, yeah. Sometimes I'm on the tunes, but some mornings, I let him do it. But sometimes he just gets in the car and starts playing with my radio and putting the tracks on. I let him. I don't say anything about it. I let him do what he wants.
As you would do. Hey, massive game Friday night. Macarthur against Melbourne Victory. Get down to Campbelltown Stadium, Macarthur fans, and if you're not a Macarthur fan, then tune in for that one because big game for the club, a chance for 3 points, of course, and it feels like it's got a real strong Friday night football vibe about it. It's a big one looming, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. It's massive. I think last week's result was fantastic. It was a must-need 3 points, and this game is, must win as well. So play at home will be good. We're hoping for a good turnaround, good turnout from the fans. Because when we got those cowbells ringing, it's fantastic environment. But yeah, it'd be a great night of football, I hope.
I remember hearing when you were coming through. Just probably one last question. You were a dead ball specialist. I haven't seen you on too many free kicks of late. Is it because the foreign boys are there and they just get I don't know what it is about foreigners. Whenever they come to a league, they get to take all the free kicks for some reason. But are you still got the dead ball up your sleeve?
Yeah, I do actually. I practice in my training every day. I know with the Ollie Roos, when I go on camp with them, I take the corners and stuff. But this season I've got Ben Nutt taking them, and that's fair enough. I think with the experience he has and the quality he has. But he came off in the Perth game. He came off earlier than usual, and we got a free kick on the edge of the box, and he wasn't there, so I quickly took my opportunity and grabbed the ball. But yeah, that's the only one I've taken so far this season.
Hopefully you take plenty more in the future. Hopefully you take a few for Australia at the Olympics. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Good luck, Dennis, in that quest, of course. And yeah, you're a star. Great to watch on the field this season and a wonderful ambassador for your club, as I'm sure the fans will attest listening to this. So thanks for joining us on the Grandstand Football Podcast. Good luck on Friday against the Victory and for the rest of the season. And let's hope we see you in that Australian shirt come the Olympics.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
So, Robbie, they beat the Melbourne Victory on Thursday night. They play them again on Friday night. Huge one for Macarthur, of course. Big opportunity for 3 points, as we discussed. What do you think Rudy Gestede might have to say to Mark Milligan, who we just spoke about after Mark Milligan's comments were caught on microphone, unfortunately for him, on the weekend, where he called Rudy Gestede the worst striker to ever play for Melbourne Victory?
I tell you what, I mean, it's not very often in world football you're going to play a team 2 weeks in a row, and then you got that little Mark Milligan comment. He's probably, I hope he didn't know that they were playing victory again, because now he's going to look at the schedule and go, oh, geez, I'm up against Rudy straight away. I don't think Mark Milligan will mind, to be honest. He's a combative figure. He loves a good battle, and the way that his team's traveling, his comments weren't probably too bad, because you'd expect them to go and beat the victory again on Friday night at home. It was an important win for Macarthur. They had to grind it out in the end, and 2 back-to-back games against the victory. They'd be expecting all 6 points. And just on Milligan, I love that Denny John Rowe stuff in the car with Milligan, for him to say, he was nervous to get into the car with a 4-time. He's been to the World Cup 4 times. So lovely stuff from Denny John Rowe. But I think playing Melbourne Victory twice at this point in the season is, as much as they've improved a little bit, it's a nice little thing for Macarthur to have.
It's a little bit harsh from Millsy on Rudy Gestede, I must say. Like, I know he hasn't produced based on his reputation and the expectations. He's been injured a lot, though. And yes, he's looked a little bit sluggish and as if he didn't really care too much at times this season, but they've also been absolutely honking all campaign long. You can tell the qualities there. Like, he's clearly better as a footballer than some other players to have worn that shirt. Not that Mark Milligan weighed them all up in his head before making the comment. It was clearly off the cuff at halftime in a game and an exaggeration, but he's been okay. You can see the talent. He scored again on the weekends, could have scored a couple more. He can clearly play the game, but it's just been the wrong player to have amidst the circumstances that the Victory have been in this season. Of course, they lost 2-1 to the Glory yesterday.
Yeah, in a better team, in a better system, I think he probably would have scored a few more goals. Whether or not he would have been a world beater and a golden boot, who's to say? I think the thing about football is, I think very few players truly hate one another. And at some point in the future, whether it's after this next game or whatever happens, I wouldn't be surprised for Mark Milligan and Rudy Gestede to have a laugh about that together, or something along those lines. Football is usually played in really good nature. And as I say, there's very few bitter rivalries where you truly hate one another and you're wishing the worst for someone else. So it makes for an interesting storyline, that's for sure, coming up this week.
Yeah, good to see Chris Economides scoring again. So back-to-back goals for him after 14 months out. He's come back and he's looking really sharp. So that's fantastic for Australian football and for Chris on a personal level. The Glory's first goal where they walk it in. That's the kind of stuff their fans have been craving to see. Castro just tapping it to Fornaroli and he finishes. They can rip teams apart on their day. Haven't done it enough, of course. They play Western Sydney this week. Another chance for 3 points, but the Wanderers have got a bit about them at the moment, as we've discussed. Sydney-Newcastle wasn't a great game. I'm talking from a Sydney FC point of view. So a good point for Newcastle just to build some pride as the season draws to an end. But geez, that was a worrying sign for the Sky Blues to play like that.
Yeah, the huge opportunity missed there. We know the makeup of the table, and they could have opened up a couple of points on a few sides. Well, I mean, we mentioned the owners of the A-League allowing other teams to pinch their players. I suppose one thing that they've done by keeping the Jets alive is allowing them to take points off Sydney FC, which is huge for all of those clubs as well. I think they were lucky in the end, because Valentino Yule, I mean, it was a run and a half from Miller down that right-hand side. Lovely cutback, and I thought he was going to score for all money. But yeah, Sydney FC will be looking back at that game with a few regrets, I reckon, because they've put themselves under a bit of pressure now in the lead up to the finals.
I mentioned Perth play Wanderers, also play Western United on Wednesday night, of course. So hey, if they get back-to-back wins, they could be the sneakiest of chances to get back in the. I don't think they will. There's too many teams ahead of them. So I've written the Glory off, and I'm sticking with that. But they've got a couple of home games to maybe give them a chance. They'll be saying behind closed doors, we're still alive.
What do you make of the absence of Kilkenny and the fact that maybe he's on the way out? I mean, I found that particularly mentioned maybe he's the one that might go to Melbourne Victory, and you look at the lineup: Castro, Bramwell, Chianese, Economides, Fornaroli, Timmins. I mean, that was like all-out attack almost from the Glory. But no Neil Kilkenny, who, I mean, he's arguably been their best player this season.
I found that telling, that it said not selected in the squad list. So not suspended, not injured, not selected. I mean, it's not selected on form, right? Yeah. So what's happened? There must be something. Is it the fact that he's leaving? Has he asked to be given a chance to leave? Has there been a blow up on the training pitch? I don't know any of that. I literally have no idea, but it's clearly not form, that we do know. So that's interesting.
I mean, anyone that knows anything about Neil Kilkenny is, to be honest, he's like a Scott McDonald.
Yes,
we spoke to Scotty last week. He is constantly, for a lack of a better word, berating, questioning, talking, criticizing, encouraging. He is 24/7 picking holes in everything, and without a doubt, that would rub people the wrong way. He's a winner. He wants the best. I remember in the Ollie Roos, he used to get his ankles strapped, and if there was a crease in the strapping tape, he would ask the physio to redo it. Like he was just one of those players. And we talk about it in a negative sense. And I know we're not comparing it to, I might have mentioned it a few months ago, and I know people get upset when we compare things to Michael Jordan and the Last Dance documentary, but that was Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was constantly on his teammates' back. He didn't have friends in the team. He was a winner. He wanted everything done perfectly. And that's what Neil Kilkenny does. And at times, people can't handle it.
That's my favourite comparison all time on the Grandstand Football Podcast. Neil Kilkenny and Michael Jordan.
We're going to cop it for that because we know the AFL does that all the time with their players and Michael Jordan. But that's the only analogy I can draw because he's not there to make friends. He's there to get better, and he's there for everyone to win.
I thought I was stretching it Connor Metcalf, Michael Ballack. You've taken it to a whole new level, my friend. Like Kilkenny and MJ. No,
that's a good one for the promos.
I understand the point you're making, as everyone does. That's why he's had a long career and a good career, but it's also why he's moved from club to club and maybe didn't play as much in the Socceroos as he should have, because same as Scott McDonald, sometimes he rubs people up the wrong way. It's just the way it goes. So there's something in that. It's certainly interesting. Hey, Adelaide Wellington, was there anything in that you can point out of interest from that game?
Well, the big talking point for me is we know we like to talk about our golf, sometimes on air, sometimes off air, Garby. But when I went to golf on Saturday morning, the big question I was getting is Kusini Yengi versus Tommy Urich. Now, Tommy scored 7 goals this season. And, when you look at that, the return has been good. But Adelaide look a different team when Yengi's played. When they went on that run and they won 6 in a row, Yengi was the striker up front. He was scoring regularly. Tommy scored since coming back, but they've lost that mobility. Yengi's ability to close down, he's quick, his ability to create space with a step over. I think Carl Viet's put himself under pressure by coming out and saying Tommy is the number 1 striker, and whenever he's fit, he will start. He said that about 4 weeks ago, and now I'm starting to think, I think Carl Viet will start Tommy Urich 100%, but there is a question that Adelaide do look a little bit better when Kusini Yengi's up top.
Yeah, well, and there's a number of options there, and we've seen... the Toure boys are back as well now. So there's a number of options in that sense. It was an opportunity lost for both teams, I think, on the weekend. But Adelaide stagnating for you a little bit. Why are they just not quite taking advantage of some of these opportunities? Western United and now Wellington at home games they haven't quite managed to capitalise on.
Yeah, I think it's 2 things. I think one is the same starting 11 for 4 games in a row.
Okay.
They haven't been scoring. I think it needs a little bit of a freshen up, whether that's a Yengi or a Toure. Secondly, I think the subs that they used to make when they came on had a real impact every single game. That last half an hour they'd come on and score. That probably hasn't been happening either. We know they've got a lot of youngsters and playing probably their first real season of football. So fatigue might be coming into it. We know it can be hard for younger players to get up game after game after game and to sort of motivate themselves. They have got some players coming back. They've missed the experience of Javi Lopez. He's still probably 3 or 4 games away. Once Lopez is back, that allows Cavallo to go back into midfield, which I think it gives them a bit more impetus to go forward. Jakobsen is obviously a couple of weeks away. Delianoff will be back next week. Noah Smith as well is knocking on the door. Yaya DeCooley, who we haven't seen since the start of the season, scored back-to-back games in the NPL and looked really, really good. I think he's one that could come in and get an opportunity. But I think ultimately teams have worked out a little bit that if you maybe just sit back against Adelaide, they're not real great at breaking defenses down. They're so good on the break and in transition when there's another team having a goal. Like against Melbourne City, they're playing Melbourne City on Thursday. They'll probably get more opportunities to score because City are going to be looking to get forward on the front foot. So I think teams that sit back, they struggle to break down. And And when they look to just get crosses into the box against a packed defence, they've only scored 2 headers all season. So it's not really an avenue to goal for them. So there is a few things that I think they've done a wonderful job, but now they're under pressure because they're probably they haven't lost, but in terms of form, they're probably one of the more out of form teams in the finals race.
Yeah, but that can change very quickly, as Western Sydney have proven. So just blockbuster games in terms of the finals race coming up. Midweek, of course, and then next weekend, Brisbane Roar, Central Coast, enormous. Western United, big opportunity for them to get their season back on track, but they have to travel once more to Perth. So the weariness of Mark Rudan and his team only continues, but I think they've hit rock bottom in a sense. The worst loss in their history against the Wanderers. They can only lift from here and regather themselves, I think. So expect a better performance in the West on Wednesday night. And then let's look ahead to next weekend's game. So Melbourne City, Adelaide. Melbourne City just want to power along to this Premier's plate. Just get it wrapped up, win it, and then say, all right, now we can reassess for the finals. So look out Adelaide on Thursday evening at Amy Park. That's going to be a tough one because they just want to keep the records flowing and the goals being scored. MacArthur, big opportunity as we've discussed against Melbourne Victory Friday night. Western United, Sydney FC and Ballarat is an intriguing game Saturday afternoon. Big chance for the Mariners in the derby on Saturday night, the F3 derby. They've got to go and get 3 points there against the Jets. Forget about what happens against Brisbane. I mean, that is a big game to get their season back on track. Almost the perfect tonic, isn't it, Rob, to have that derby coming up for the Mariners as they try and make the finals. City Phoenix on Sunday afternoon, Adelaide Brisbane on Sunday night, and then the Glory and the Wanderers. So plenty of games taking place. All of them have a huge impact on the top 6. We just watch these positions and the points jostle from game to game, Rob, which is awesome to keep a track of.
Yeah, so many games you just mentioned there. Difficult for me to sort of pin one down. I suppose the Mariners, the next 2 games, they need to get at least 3 points, as you mentioned, playing against Newcastle. I mean, if they get something against Brisbane, fantastic. Brisbane with Central Coast and then Adelaide, that'll be another huge clash over here next Sunday. Adelaide City and Brisbane, the next 2 games. That's really difficult. Wellington Phoenix, I'm going to call it now. I'm finally going to call it, Garby. I think their season's done. Ulysses Davila with the hamstring. I'm not sure how bad it is, but you wouldn't expect him to be back for their next game, which is also against Melbourne City. So I think their season is done, which is a shame. I want it to still be alive for them when they go back home to New Zealand, just to make things a little bit more interesting for the fans there. But so much to get through and plenty of football for us to watch over the next week or so.
He's put a line through Wellington Phoenix, but that's nowhere near to the biggest call Robbie Cornthwaite's made on the podcast today. Neil Kilkenny and Michael Jordan, as big as it gets.
I do that for the promos, mate, just to give Britt Carter, our producer, something to put up on social media there, just to get the drums beating this week.
Fantastic. She'll put the show together. She'll put the promos up. She's a gem, as are you, Rob. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Dennis Jonro, who was a wonderful guest. We'll be back next Monday with plenty more football to talk about from the Australian scene. Have a wonderful 7 days before then.
Discover more great ABC podcasts, live radio and exclusives on the ABC Listen app.